Hello and welcome to Citizen Earned, where I unpack what it means to be the best American citizen from an immigrant's perspective. My guide, thus far, has been the Declaration of Independence, which is the promise of freedom, the Constitution, which is the manual on how to run the government to be able to deliver on this promise of freedom, and the Bill of Rights, the piece of the Constitution, which is the citizen's task, or the citizen's manual on how to deliver on the promise of freedom. I've also covered that to become a citizen, one has to take the oath of allegiance. And within the oath of allegiance, there is the segment that says to protect the U.S. against all enemies, both foreign and domestic. For me, the way that I've imparted this into my life is by following the Bill of Rights. I've covered the First Amendment, Second Amendment, and Third Amendment, and now it is time to cover the Fourth Amendment. Well, you see, the Fourth Amendment is kind of directly related to the Third Amendment. So if you didn't see the video on the Third Amendment, it might be worthwhile to go back, check that out, and then come back here. But what is the Fourth Amendment? Here it says, in my handy dandy little pocket guide for the U.S. Constitution, that the Fourth Amendment is the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by an oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. Holy crap! These people wrote very differently than we do. Essentially, that you can't be searched, nor can your property be seized without proper documentation. Documentation that has been through the process of checks and balances. So that police or any extension of the government can't just walk in and do what they want. They have to have a reason and probable cause. There's more to it than that, but you kind of get the idea. The key point, just like with the Third Amendment, is that the citizens have the right to deny the government access, physically, electronically, or in any other way that they might feel that their privacy is being encroached on. Now, this is pretty easy to do physically, especially if you exercise the Second Amendment. Although you will cause a big ruckus and a big issue, you can technically deny the government access to your house or your property or whatever else if you have the means to enforce that, i.e. firearms. And of course, if this is what somebody's going to do, then they better be absolutely certain that they are in the right, because otherwise bad stuff's going to happen. And I don't necessarily recommend people to just do this. I don't just do this. But the point is to unpack the ideas behind why this amendment exists. It's a lot harder to do electronically, especially after the Patriot Act, after the September 11th, 2001 terror attacks on America. Now, of course, that was a terrible day in American history. Some of us lived through it. Some of us were more affected by it than many other people. And it shaped kind of our country, our political policy, a lot of the stuff that the military does for the last 20 some odd years or so. What happened on that day was terrible. The resulting legislation from that day is kind of dangerous. There's a link down in the description. It's kind of a starter pack or a link that explains how the Patriot Act modified a bunch of previous acts for surveillance and things that affect privacy on the Fourth Amendment. Feel free to go down that rabbit hole as deep as you dare. A couple of mentions is that it amends the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act of 1978. It amends the Electronic Communications Privacy Act of 1986, which itself was an amendment to the Omnibus Crime Control and Safe Streets Act of 1968. The Patriot Act also changes the Money Laundering Control Act of 1986, the Bank Secrecy Act of 1970, and the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952. A lot of those acts sound like maybe they shouldn't have anything to do with privacy, but I don't know, maybe they do. I doubt you do either. We should go read these things and figure this out. The Patriot Act was then followed by the USA Patriot and Terrorism Prevention Reauthorization Act of 2005 and a few others. As I find them, I will list them below in the description. So, when it comes to privacy, physical privacy is pretty easy. Electronic privacy is a little bit harder, and it is our responsibility as citizens to figure out how not only the government but also private companies can acquire our information and how they're going to use that information. There is no way I can, for instance, create an exhaustive list, either as a written document or as a video, to give to somebody to make this easy. That's the thing about freedom, is it's not easy. It requires a lot of input, it requires a lot of work, and it requires a lot of understanding and a desire to be involved with delivering on the promise of freedom. So, for instance, I use a VPN on my phone. I use a VPN for the computers, depending on what I'm doing. If I'm just streaming Netflix, I don't really feel the need to hide that information, although you can. There are some people out there that are paranoid and hide that information as well through a VPN. But you kind of have to figure out your own safety and securities, just like you would have to for your own home. I don't know what the dangers are in your area, and you don't know what the dangers are in my area. So I figure out how to protect me, and hopefully you can protect you. I just wanted to share this, and that, as we move through the Bill of Rights and check off First, Second, Third, Fourth Amendments and so on and such forth every day, it's a very easy guide to do our best to stay free. Sometimes it's a struggle, and sometimes it's easier. So the takeaways then of the Fourth Amendment would be to keep tabs on what Congress is doing to see what kind of resulting legislation they're putting on the books and how they're modifying things and amending things and whether that's a good idea or not. The second thing is, as we keep tabs on this and as we find this information, to share this information with other people. Might be more helpful than cat memes. I don't know. Probably not as entertaining, but probably more helpful. And then to self-monitor personal privacy, both physically, digitally, and I guess in any other way that might come up. If you need a copy of your handy-dandy little Constitution of the United States booklet, there will be a link in the description below. No, I don't make any money off of them or off of the sale. I just think it's really important that people have this and read it and know what it's all about. This one I got when I became a citizen. So hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you check back for the next one. Have a great day.